Okay, so now we're going to start with our first part of the specification, and these are the three types of proof. Now, for the three types, we have proof by deduction, proof by exhaustion, and disproof by counterexample. Now, we'll start with proof by deduction, which is something that you have met before if you've done additional maths at GCSE. If you remember differentiating by first principles, that is a type of proof by deduction. And as you can remember, there's quite a lot of steps to follow it through. But once you break it down into sizable chunks, like anything, it makes it nice and easy. So here we go. Okay, so now we'll start with our definition. Okay, now it might sound a little bit complicated, but it is really easy to understand, and that is to use something assumed true to decide the validity of a statement. And what I mean by validity is whether a statement is just true or false. So essentially, working our way through an algebraic expression, as you'll probably have to do at AS, it gets a little bit more complicated in A2 and also in further maths for both AS and A2. But it's literally just trying to work out if a statement is true or false. So we'll start with our example. Okay, and our question is to prove that if x is even, x squared is also even. Now this is a very basic, bog standard question. You probably won't get any easier than this, but it can get a lot more difficult. But seeing as this is just a quick overview of the different topics, I'll just try and pick a nice and easy one, not to scare you too much, okay? So there are three main steps to break this method down into, and we'll start with the first one, which is to and that is to start with a fact. And that sounds a little bit confusing, but it is just stating something that you know is absolutely true. And to do this, we often tend to look at the first part of the question. So this is the bit that we need to take a nice close look at. What about an even number makes it even? That sounds like a very strange question, but there is something true for all even numbers, and that is the fact that it is divisible by 2. Now all we need to do is just write this as an algebraic expression, and that is nice and easy by just writing now this 2m here is just to prove that when you multiply any integer value by 2 you get a even number, which is obviously true for everything. Now this m can be any number, m, k, n, whatever you fancy. It's just an integer replacer. Okay, and for our second step, so for our second step we must assume a new statement and then work it through, like I said. Now these three are going to be representative, or the final step as well is going to be representative of the marks that you can gain through this question. More often than not, they're 3, even though some might be a lot easier or a lot more difficult than others. And what I mean by assuming something is true is literally writing assume ... Okay? And now for this bit, we tend to look at the second half of the question. We look at this here. We need to assume that x squared is also even for this part, as we haven't proven it yet. But as you can see here, we've already made up a statement that we can use to help prove that this can also be even. And this is as simple as, well, logically, we must square the x, so this one must be squared as well. There we are, nice and easy, and all we have to do now is just work it through. Okay, and as we have established earlier, any number that is multiplied or divided by 2 is an even number. And as you can see, we've got a common factor here that we can factorize out. And that is our good old even friend, number 2. And as we know, a multiple of 2 is the definition of being an even number. Now, this is a really, really important step that you absolutely cannot forget to include, because this is your third and final mark, and that is to write the initial statement. Now, this is so important because this is a mark, and as I learned at A2, that is the difference between a grade. So it is as simple as just writing. Now, this symbol means therefore. It's really nice and quick to save you writing out such a long and arduous word, but it is as simple as writing if x is even, x squared is also even, as proven by deduction. And that is it for proof by deduction. Really nice and simple. You can get some quite nasty questions, but the more you practice, the better you'll get. As long as you break it down into these 3 steps, you should be absolutely fine. Just ensure that when you are working it through, you don't miss out any steps. So if I just went from this to this, the examiner's going to go, well, how do I know that they understand what's going on? And you may not get this mark, even though all your workings are absolutely correct. Okay, fantastic. On to the next one.